what's really important is that the Ravens address some of these issues from a disciplinary standpoint head on. And I thought Lamar Jackson did a good job of doing exactly that during his press conference earlier today. He was asked, how do you fix this? What is going wrong with your offense right now? There have been very, very slow starts in recent weeks after being so dominant leading up to the last. Prior to the last couple of weeks, they had been so dominant on opening drives in scripted format. That has not been the case in recent weeks. And because of that, the Ravens have been seemingly climbing uphill from the jump the last couple games. Here's Lamar.
Being consistent. When we're doing things out there on that field, we got to be consistent, and that's what we're chasing. And we're not doing a good job at being consistent. You know, we having our moments where going to the game, scoring first drive. And it's been a couple of weeks we haven't been scoring first drive. You know, and it's just been taking us a little while to get our groove, and we got to work on that. That's the biggest thing for us right now, just being consistent. And like I said earlier, just putting points on the board because that's our job.
And remembering what John Harbaugh said early in the week at his Monday presser.
Board, it's everything. I mean, the buck stops here. Harry Truman, right? Stops with me. So it's my job to make sure that we're doing the things that we got to do. And we, from a coaching standpoint, from drill standpoint, from an emphasis standpoint, technique standpoint, and making sure guys understand that, it's not okay. It's not acceptable. We've all got to be intentional about getting it stopped, and my job to make sure that everybody's focused on it.
Yeah, the buck stops. Certainly. Get it. But by the way, random comment. I love this, but why does it look like I have shoulder pads? Like, J. Crew, what are we doing here? I feel like I'm actually, I don't know. I got a decent frame up top. I got some shoulders that I work on a weekly basis. Why the hell is this so puffy? It's like Puff Daddy over here. Okay, look, Lamar and Harbaugh clearly addressing what we already know. What has the Achilles heel been for the Ravens in recent weeks? Discipline or lack thereof. Getting in first and long, early down situations where you are climbing out of 1st and 20, 2nd and 19, so on and so forth. And you know what? The Ravens have the offense where they can overcome that. But you can't consistently overcome that, particularly against your rivals on the road in Pittsburgh. I hate to point this out, but take a look at the bottom of this sheet right here in the Ravens notes that they put out at BaltimoreRavens.com. Okay. They are last in 2 categories, technically 3 if you include the pass defense, but for the purpose of this conversation, the Ravens are dead last in penalties and penalty yards, and they have been for weeks league-wide. They've committed 92 penalties, guys. In total, that's 763 yards negated. That is a tough world to live in. And a lot of it has been due to the offensive line. My guy Spencer Schultz put together a few notes at the beginning of the week. And he wrote that the Ravens have been flagged for offensive holding, false starts, and illegal formations 47 times this year. 2 months ago, I would have been willing to have the conversation or at least been receptive if some of you came to me and were like, oh, hey, the penalty number is inflated because of how much they were the guinea pig on opening night with all those illegal formations in Kansas City. Guys, that was September 5th. That's no longer an excuse. The Bengals have 58 total penalties. Okay? This isn't Ravens football. This is lack of execution, and this is a lack of consistent coaching. They have 3 offensive linemen in the top 10 of offensive holding penalties. 3 of them. McCary leads all. And Ronnie Stanley and Fa'alele are tied for 3rd league-wide. Ken McCusick dialed it up here for McCary, who's actually played a solid left guard for them. You exclude the penalties, and again, I have a hard time getting on McCary, somebody who has literally done everything asked of him since he showed up as an undrafted rookie. The guy's played every damn position up and down the line. And so I'm willing to have some grace. But damn, 12 penalties, 681 snaps. That's 1 flag every 56.8 snaps, as Ken tallied. The 2024 penalty rate is 348% of his prior career. And look at what he did prior to 2024. Played clean football. Over 2,600 snaps, just 15 penalties. That's one for every almost 200 snaps that he logged. So again, unfortunately, Patrick is at the center of this conversation, but he's not the only one to blame, and he's not the only one that should be held accountable. Like I said, his running mates as well are in the middle of this, in Ronnie and in Fa'alele. This is the stuff that stalls drives. This is the stuff that creates drag, to use one of Todd Monken's phrases. And this is the kind of stuff that puts you in the category at the bottom half of the league, bare bones, 32nd ranked in both penalties committed and the yards that they've negated. It's not good enough. And it had Jon Gruden. It had Jon Gruden in straight up vintage form on his new YouTube channel going off about this very topic.
Production and balance, but I think the last two games, they have really irritated me with their slow starts. Against the Bengals, I kept waiting. Come on, let's go, guys. I was telling that to myself. I'm sure they're saying the same thing. Against the Steelers, they had some penalties early in the game. They really have to get started faster. And I think that's critical for their defense as well. Get a lead and play with the lead and make somebody chase you. Very important that the Ravens eliminate the penalties. We talked about it at the very beginning. They're number one in the league in penalties. It's ridiculous. Over 90 penalties. A lot of these penalties have come on offense. I mean, their left guard, McCary, has 10 penalties. 10! Their left tackle is one of my favorite tackles in the league, Ronnie Stanley. He's got 9 penalties. And their right guard, Fa'alele, he's got 5 penalties. Now, if you're the offensive line coach, you probably say, hey, they're pissing me off. We got to get rid of the penalties. All right, 14 holding penalties between those 3 men. That's like giving up 14 sacks. Let me tell you, those are 10-yard penalties. And don't you hate when the referee, he gets on there with his biceps hanging out and says, holding, and he points out your name, and then he marches the yards off. It's like he's looking at, hey, Gruden. I freaking hate that. They got to get rid of the penalties.
Oh, man, speaking for all of you within Ravens Nation there, John, nobody's doing it better and more authentic than he is right now in the YouTube space. I would not be surprised if this upcoming hiring cycle, by the way, I would not be surprised to see John's name floating around with several of the vacancies that are expected to be had and available across the league at the head coaching position. But look, bottom line is 32nd in penalties with 92 total, 32nd in penalty yards with 763 negated. It's not good enough. It's got to be cleaned up. That is the difference between championship football and an early exit in the postseason. And the Ravens are flirting with that. They had 12 of them against their rival, which negated 80 yards on Sunday in Pittsburgh. It's a season-long trend. It's something that's got to go away now if this team wants to try and claw back in, not necessarily the postseason race. They're squarely involved in the postseason conversation. But if they want to win this division, especially given Pittsburgh's difficult, daunting of a gauntlet stretch down this second half, they got to get that cleaned up, and they got to get it cleaned up as soon as possible.